Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. I think this happened back around 2003 when we lived in Mississippi. I was about 14 at that time, and my little brother would have been around 9. We had gone trick-or-treating for several years now, and last year, we did a lot of it around our neighborhood by ourselves. I always loved going door to door, and was even more fun when it was just the two of us. I felt like a grown-up being in charge of my little brother. I was also really looking forward to this year because my brother and I really enjoyed the movie Lilo and Stitch, and he wanted to dress up as Stitch. I was really close to my brother, so I decided that I would go as Lilo, and it made us a cute matching pair as well as an easy costume for me. And while I love Halloween and trick-or-treating, I had a sensory issue and still do, so I don't like to wear a lot of things or layers at once. I already had long dark hair, so I didn't even need a wig, just a cute little red dress really. The problem I had with this year though, was what I was hearing on the news. There had been reports of a couple of kids missing that were close around my age. I wasn't good with locations, so I don't remember what city it was exactly. But I don't remember it took place close to us. It honestly scared me as I realized how many times I was alone. My parents often left me at home, with and without my brother, when they had to run to the store or something short like that. I had to walk down the street to go to the bus stop, and my parents wouldn't even be able to see me from the front door. I even rode my bike around the block or down the little gas station by myself. And hearing these stories of kids coming up missing alarmed me. But my parents didn't seem to think that there was anything to worry about. When the news stories came up, my mom would always make remarks about, "How stupid can you be?" and criticize the parents and blame them for not watching their kids closely. However, she still told us to walk the block by ourselves, and when I asked if it was okay, she pretty much said, "Yeah, why wouldn't it be?" Parents of the year, right? So we got all dressed up and I made sure to bring my dad's shop flashlight because it was made of some pretty hefty metal, and I stuffed it in my candy bag. I figured that it would be good to have as both a light source and a possible weapon. I also made a mental note while we were out to keep a close eye on our surroundings. I was a little nervous since this whole night involved us going to strangers' houses alone. But because Halloween was also one of my favorite holidays, I was determined to remain vigilant and also have a good time. We made our way uphill first, as there were only 3 houses that way before we rounded the corner. After the turn, there was an empty house, because I remember them recently renovating it. And then the road curved into a cul-de-sac that has 4 houses on it. We went to each one of those, and between just those few houses that we had gone to, our bags were already feeling pretty full. Between our candy load and how excited my brother was, I was starting to loosen up a bit and have more fun with it. We left the dead end and continued down the road, making our way to a house that had really gone all out. The whole yard was covered in creepy decorations, from a gory graveyard, moving ghosts in a tree, and they even had a path that you had to walk through to get to the door. One guy was even in a Grim Reaper costume, standing still until you walked by and it would scare you. I was surprised that my brother wanted to go through it, and in fact, he laughed after getting scared. When we got to the door, the older couple complimented our costumes, gave us a big handful of candy, and asked us a few questions. After chatting some, we left through the other side of the yard and back through the front gate. As we walked a bit, my brother was getting excited about one of the little toys he noticed that the last house handed out, and then started digging in his bag while we walked. He was wanting to carry it with him, but I was trying to get him to stop until we got to the corner where there was a better light. And fortunately, the exact thing that I was wanting to avoid happened when we nearly ran into someone in front of us. At first, I looked up to see this tall man wearing some kind of hooded poncho or something. When I think back about this event, I started to realize that I had no idea where this guy came from. There was a small group of kids and adults ahead of us, but they had already moved on, and no one had walked by us since we left the house. I suppose he could have been behind us and got ahead when we stopped at the house, but I don't recall ever seeing someone ahead of us. Anyways, I gasped a little bit as I stepped backwards and apologized to the man. His response to this was saying in a really creepy way, "Oh, that's all right, baby girl. Are you okay?" My parents don't even call me that, so it immediately made me feel weird. So I just said that I was fine and grabbed my brother's hand and walked around him. I started feeling like I was being watched, so I looked back and saw the guy still standing in the same spot. He was now facing towards us. I turned back around and tried to get my brother to speed up so we could get to the next house, and as we left the next one, the poncho guy was standing on the sidewalk right by the house. He was smiling and made a comment about our bags looking heavy and asked if we needed help carrying them. I wasn't very well mannered when it came to being scared or people that made me uncomfortable, so I just said, "No," as firm and grown up as I could, and again pulled my brother along. I was really starting to become more panicked at this point, wondering what this guy's true intentions were. Surely, it wasn't a ruse to take our candy. He was an adult, or at least looked like it, so he could have gotten some on his own. So if not the candy, what else would he want with young kids like us? It started freaking me out more when I thought about the kids that had been kidnapped recently. Was this the guy responsible for them? Was he trying to find a good opportunity to grab us too? I started looking around to see if there were any adults nearby, or even the group of children that I saw earlier, thinking we would at least be safer with them. But they were even gone. My last hope was Miss Marcia's house. Marcia was an older lady that worked at the front desk of the office that my mom worked at. She was very sweet and always gave my brother and I some kind of treat when we went there with my mom for any reason. She actually lived on the road parallel, or behind our home basically, which was also the road we were on. It was a few houses down after the corner, so I started telling my brother that we should go to her house first. He didn't seem to mind, possibly because he was reading the situation too, or he was just getting tired. As we passed the first house, I heard the familiar creepy voice saying, "Hey, you missed one, didn't you?" Before I could say anything though, my brother yelled out, "You're being weird." So I again held his hand and we ran. I was scared that this guy would get mad at my brother's comment, although I was glad he said it, and possibly chase us, so I wanted to get there fast. We made it to her house and I pushed my brother ahead of me as I grabbed his bag from him and he started knocking on the door. Thankfully, she was home and had a bowl of candy in her arms. I frantically asked her if we could come in, as I looked behind me and didn't see the guy. She of course invited us in, shutting the door behind us, asking what was wrong. I started explaining the situation to her, and she said that I did a very smart thing by trying to avoid him and going to her home immediately. She gave us both some water, and we watched TV while she went to call our mom. And after a short time, there was a knock on the door. I was trying to keep calm, thinking it was Halloween after all, and was thinking that it was probably just kids. But when Marcia answered the door, it was the same guy. He tried giving her some story about us being his kids and apologized for them running in her home. Marcia, knowing our parents of course, told him off, saying he needed to leave as the cops had already been called. I remember his face clearly at this point, trying to look past her and at us, and I heard him say, "Oh, I must have the wrong house. Good night," and then walked away. She shut the door but went and sat at the window, presumably watching where he went. It didn't take long for my parents to show up, and then the cops around the same time. We told them what happened while we were out and described the guy to the best that we could since it was dark. I remember giving Marcia a big hug before we left, being incredibly thankful that she was there, as I would have been shy just asking some random person to come in their house. And as far as I'm aware, the guy was never found, which is still terrifying. But sometimes, I still wonder what his intentions were, and could it be the same guy from the news? Also, we just went home that night from there, and my parents followed us in the car the following years. I guess, at least they agreed to do that. This is about 2 incidents that happened on Halloween. First was way back a couple of years ago. It was believed in our culture that on Halloween's Eve or All Saints' Day, the souls of the departed would visit the houses of living relatives, mostly in the forms of big moths and other unusual insects. Many will prepare food and other favorites, like candles, and offer prayers, especially those who prefer to stay in the house. In my case, I was outside of our house then, preparing the candles while the other members of the family are inside. So, I lit 5 candles just near our main door, and I was just sitting next to it. Moments later, I saw the flames of the candles grow and then burn sideways, like it was being blown. Yes, being blown by somebody. All of the 5 candles. I was shocked, silently staring at it for a minute, and I'm sure that it's not the wind, because it's a little humid at that time, and after it rained in the late afternoon, the leaves of the trees are still, and nobody else was also around. The blowing still continues, and before I could think of anything else, I ran outside the gate, out to the streets with the other people. In a split second of a moment, I was totally scared, deeply panting. And then minutes later, my father called me to get inside to eat. Just when I look at the candles again, it was back on its normal flames and almost half burnt already. I told them about it, but nobody believed me. The second experience happened when I was already married. Also, it was the same occasion, and I was outside at our small porch lighting candles while carrying my youngest son. I can clearly see the people inside the house since they turned on all of the lights. We had our dinner early, so my wife was already upstairs with our eldest son. I can see our maid finishing her chores at the kitchen, and my father at the living room watching TV. Our kitchen is just across a couple of steps from our bathroom, anybody from the bathroom or kitchen, going or coming from, can really be seen. So, I was still outside enjoying the breeze when I saw someone, a woman. I really did see her passing from the bathroom going to the kitchen clearly. Still, I could see her back when I called our maid. "Ging, pagnaon niya ang suga sa kusina." Which means, "Gang, turn off the lights at the kitchen after." Which to my surprise, she answered through the window upstairs saying, "Wala pa ko nahuman, kuya." Which means, "I'm not yet finished, kuya." Immediately, I felt shivers down my back and I called my father asking if anybody is in the kitchen. Maybe it was my mother. To which he said, "Nobody." I hurriedly went inside the house and went up to our room and told my wife, and she said to just keep quiet about it. Later she told me she had also seen her, the same female figure, passing through our fence, but didn't pass through the wall. I'm skipping all festivities this Halloween. Story by you/Grandaddyspookybones. I work in a seasonal Halloween store. You probably know the one I'm talking about. We typically pop up in the plazas or mall fronts that are run down in your small town. We show up for about 2 months and then are gone. It's not a bad job. I'm able to work around my school schedule, and as a Halloween fanatic, it's pretty neat. I've done this enough where I've been able to become the key holder or shift lead. We get all kinds of customers. Small kids looking for costumes, adults looking for party decorations, dads going all out to make their houses the spookiest spot on the block, and etc. I've done this a couple of seasons now, and I was never surprised. Until lately. It started as a normal day. I was fronting all the decorations and putting back the costumes that people haphazardly put in the wrong place. I was scarfing down a frozen burrito down on my lunch break when I saw him come in. This dude, he had to have been about 6'6". He was wearing an orange jumpsuit and had on a mask. This mask was very elaborate. It was pale gray or blue, and the eyes were hollow and blacked out, so mesh hiding his eyes. The lips were stitched. But this isn't out of the ordinary. People do this very often. They dress up, come in a shop, and try to get a reaction out of some kids or record TikToks. "Get a look at this jagoff," I told Penelope. It was just me and her closing the store. We had one of those relationships where we weren't a couple, but everyone wondered why, and I think we wondered why too. "Yeah, that guy sure is scary. His mask is a winner. I've never seen it online or in any other store." The man casually browsed some of our decorations, and I let him be. He came for attention, and I wasn't going to validate him. Well, not until he walked through some of our displays where we have the animatronics, a vibrating floor, and a fog machine. It's really just a fun walkthrough for kids to get a quick spook in. Well, a small boy was walking through already nervous, and this man jumped into the path and let out a mighty laugh. The boy screamed and ran to his mother, leaving behind a puddle that I'd have to clean. I went to confront the man and ask him to leave, but before I could, the child's mother came up to me and gave me an earful. I apologized even though I had done nothing wrong. I gave the kid a costume and then sent them out. And suddenly, the man was gone. I walked back to the register and put on some campy horror movie that sits at the TV by the register. I started talking to Penelope about classes that I was taking and was going to invite her on a date. Two ladies walked in that I happened to recognize from around college. They went to the sexy costume aisles and grabbed about 3 or 4 costumes apiece. Penelope guided them to the private changing rooms that we keep available. She came back and had a smirk on her face. Sexy cats, Playboy bunnies, nurses, and poison ivy. How original. We both let out a chuckle, and I had built the courage. Hey, when we get out of here, do you want to catch one of those midnight showings at the drive-in? I can swing by the house and grab some snacks and then set the truck up for optimal viewing. She bit her lip and looked at the ground, then at me. She burst out laughing and punched me in the shoulder. Hell yeah! I'll go on a date with you, she said, and I felt on top of the world. She went to help a horror dad look at the yard decorations while I was having my celebration internally. I went to put in a new CD in the store PA when we heard a woman screaming. Penelope and I took off as fast as we could towards the changing rooms, and the tall masked man had ripped open one of the changing room doors and threw a gallon of fake blood all over one of those girls while she was changing costumes. Penelope quickly grabbed one of the ponchos we sell and covered the crying girl. Her friend heard the commotion and came out of her stall, helping Penelope lead the girl to the staff bathroom to get the fake blood out of her eyes and attempt to clean her up. I was livid. I quickly raced to the man and yelled, "Hey pervert, I don't know what your game is, but you have to leave now." Another customer chirped in, "Hey, step away from him. The police are on the way." The man turned and stormed off at the entrance doors. Some minutes later, local PD came out. I talked with them while Penelope gathered the woman's street clothes. I told the officers all I knew, and I pulled up what security camera footage I could. But all of it was really useless. I mean, the dude was in a costume. I have no true description of him other than him being tall. We did see that he pulled off in an old Ford Festiva, but we couldn't make out the plates. He had parked far away enough that the footage was grainy, and the officers spoke with the 2 women and went on their way. I gathered up the mop to go clean the mess that the man had made. Closing time came around, and Penelope told me that she was heading out. It was my job to do closing operations, such as security codes and counting the tills at the end, so I told her that I'd be leaving in an hour and I would swing by the house to get the truck ready and pick her up. She gave me a small kiss on the cheek and left. I quickly went to the office and counted the money and locked the office on my way out. Heading to the front door, I noticed another spill. Great. More punk kids and fake blood, back near the changing rooms again. I figured some kid made off to play while some parent wasn't paying attention. I opened the curtain, and my stomach dropped. Penelope lay there in a pool of blood, mouth bubbling, and tears falling from her face. She managed to look past me before she grew silent, and I quickly called EMT and told them that there was a murder. First responders would be on the way, but it would take them at least 10 minutes. I felt 2 hands on my shoulder, and I was flung into a display of pitchforks and sling blades. Looking up, my eyes met him, the man with the mask. He sat on me and put his hands around my throat. I could see his tongue licking the stitches while I was reaching for anything that I could find. There was nothing in my reach, and I put my hands on his face. The mask felt like real skin, I managed to put my thumbs closer to his eyes, and in a moment of pure instinct, I jammed my thumbs into his eyes. The mesh broke and I was able to get a pretty good hit there. However, it only lasted a second, but it was enough to clear my airway and swipe his ankle on my way out from under him. I took off to the front door to escape, only to find it locked. I banged on the door until my hand bled, and I ran into one of our walkthroughs, hoping that I could wait it out until maybe the cops could bust the door. I curled into a corner and held my breath. Minutes later, I could hear the man whistling and laughing as he checked in containers. He made his way into the encampment that I had burrowed into and triggered some lights and fog. Doing so set off an animatronic witch. She began to rock back and forth and it exposed me, and he saw me and pulled out his knife. He put his hand on me, and I managed to knock the witch over as he pulled me out. She fell against him. She wasn't heavy, but it was just enough resistance so that I could run. And at this point, I saw the blue lights and the police working on opening the door. They barely had it cracked and I bust out crying. They stormed in the area, but they couldn't find the killer. EMT examined me and I was stable enough to go home. They checked in on Penelope, but it was too late. She had been gone the moment that I was with her. So, be safe this season, and watch out for people in costumes. And here are the top comments for my last video. And here's the riddle for this video. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.